Welcome to Bedtime Tales. Tonight we step into a peaceful scene, a small garden by the sea, where every flower seems to whisper to the waves, and every breeze carries the gentle scent of the ocean and wild blossoms. This is not a place of noise or hurry. Here, time seems to slow, making space for quiet moments, allowing your mind to drift with the rhythm of nature. Along the shoreline, gentle waves ripple and kiss the smooth stones and soft sand. The sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, casting a pale golden light that stretches across every blade of grass, every flower, and even the leaves that rustle softly in the wind. The world is bathed in a warm, tender glow, as if it has taken a long, deep breath and is letting its body relax completely. Amid this serene landscape lies a small garden, tucked quietly beside the sea, a secret kept for countless days. Vibrant flowers grow without pride, lush green shrubs sway gently, and winding sandy paths trace through the garden, blending into a picture of calm, alive yet still. As you step inside, you can hear the soft whisper of leaves, the delicate songs of birds perched high above, and occasionally the gentle murmur of the sea, like a lullaby inviting dreams to settle in. Within this garden walks a young girl named Lila, her eyes wide with curiosity. She immediately senses the difference here. The garden seems to breathe with its own rhythm, a quiet pulse that only serene hearts can feel. Every flower, every leaf reflects the sunset's glow, as if inviting her to pause, to take a deep, slow breath, and to savor every single moment. A small cat appears among the bushes, quietly watching Lila. It does not run away, but slowly leads her to a hidden corner of the garden, where a violet flower shimmers in the evening light. Lila leans down and touches its soft petals, and a wondrous feeling fills her heart, as though this garden had been waiting for her, welcoming her with all the gentle warmth it could offer. Every step Lila takes blends with the rhythm of the waves, the wind, and the swaying blossoms. Time seems to dissolve, leaving only a profound sense of calm, a quiet so deep it lifts the weight from her mind. This is a place where she can forget all worries, all the noise of the outside world, and simply breathe, simply feel, simply exist. And so we follow her into this garden, to discover every tiny detail, every quiet moment, allowing our own hearts to be soothed by the waves, the wind, and the tender fragrance of flowers. This will be a slow, gentle journey, filled with the beauty of nature, where every sight, every sound, every sensation is cherished like a soft, drifting dream. As Lila stepped further into the garden, the gentle whispers of the sea grew softer, replaced by the subtle hum of the plants and the rustling of leaves. Each step she took seemed to awaken tiny miracles, flowers leaning toward her, delicate petals brushing her fingertips, as if greeting her presence. She felt as though she had crossed into a place untouched by time, a sanctuary where every living thing held its breath in anticipation. A soft breeze curled around her, carrying the faint aroma of salt and wildflowers. The scent was both familiar and strange, comforting yet magical, wrapping itself around her senses and slowing her thoughts. Lila breathed deeply, feeling the tension of the day melt away with each exhale, as though the garden were teaching her the gentle rhythm of patience and presence. Among the blooms, a small tabby cat appeared, its green eyes glimmering in the soft light of late afternoon. It padded gracefully between the flower beds, pausing to glance back at Lila, almost as if it wanted her to follow. With delicate curiosity, she obeyed, her bare feet brushing the sandy paths and mossy patches beneath. Every sound, the crunch of sand, the whisper of leaves, the faint distant crash of the waves, blended into a quiet symphony, guiding her deeper into the heart of the garden. In a shaded corner, hidden behind an arch of climbing roses, Lila discovered a small pond. Its surface was still, perfectly reflecting the sky and the gentle sway of the surrounding plants. She knelt by the water's edge, her reflection merging with the soft hues of the setting sun. For a moment, the world outside the garden ceased to exist. Here she felt neither rush nor worry, only a profound, serene connection with life itself. As she explored further, she noticed that some flowers glowed faintly in the dimming light, tiny, almost imperceptible sparks dancing at the edges of petals. The effect was subtle, ethereal, as if the garden held a secret magic. Lila reached out to touch one, and the moment her fingers brushed against the velvety surface, a gentle shiver of warmth spread through her hand and up her arm, leaving her heart lighter and her thoughts quieter. Everywhere she looked, there were signs of life quietly thriving. Birds flitted from branch to branch, their soft chirps blending with the whisper of the wind. Small insects, unnoticed at first, hummed around blossoms, contributing their tiny voices to the garden's lullaby. The waves beyond the garden seemed to slow, their rhythm now a steady, calming heartbeat that matched her own. Lila felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, as though she were not merely visiting this place, but rather returning to it after a long journey. Time stretched gently, moments slipping by like slow-moving clouds. Lila wandered along winding paths, each turn revealing a new wonder. A cluster of violet flowers that shimmered with dew, a twisted old tree whose branches arched like arms ready to embrace her, and a tiny fountain whose trickling water sounded like a whispered story from another world. She felt her heartbeat settle into the slow, soothing tempo of the garden, and she realized that she could stay here forever, and it would still feel like the right amount of time. The cat, now sitting beside a fragrant lavender bush, looked at her knowingly, its tail curling gently around its paws. Lila smiled softly. In that moment, she understood that this garden was alive, not merely with plants and animals, but with memory, with intention, and with the quiet, enduring pulse of care and love. It was a place that had waited patiently, holding space for anyone who might come to nurture it, and in return, it offered peace, wonder, and the gentle thrill of discovery. As the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of pink, orange, and soft purple, Lila paused on a small wooden bench hidden beneath a flowering arbor. She sat down and closed her eyes, allowing the sounds, scents, and colors of the garden to wash over her. The world outside no longer mattered. Here, time moved slowly, deliberately, with a grace that seemed to lull every worry into silence. And so, Lila's first evening in the garden ended quietly, with the promise of more to come. She had discovered a world that existed between waking and dreaming, a place where the heart could rest and the soul could wander freely. Every gentle breeze, every petal, every ripple in the pond was an invitation to linger, to breathe, and to simply be. In this garden she felt the beginnings of a magic that was subtle, but enduring, a slow melody meant to carry her through days and nights in quiet wonder. The next morning, Lila returned to the garden before the sun had fully risen. A soft, misty light lingered over the sea, and the first rays of dawn painted the sky in delicate shades of pink and gold. The air was crisp, carrying the mingled scents of salt water and earth, with hints of lavender and wildflowers drifting gently across the paths. Lila inhaled deeply, savoring the quiet, and felt a sense of anticipation stirring within her. Today she would begin to care for this garden, to gently tend the life that had welcomed her so kindly. She started by inspecting the flower beds, noticing the delicate differences in each bloom, the curve of a petal, the tiny veins on a leaf, the way morning dew clung to their surfaces. Some flowers had bent under the weight of the night's moisture, while others were reaching eagerly toward the sun. Lila knelt on the soft earth, running her fingers over the damp soil, and began to carefully lift and support the flowers that needed help. Every touch felt intimate, almost sacred, as if she were whispering her care directly into the heart of each plant. The cat from the day before followed her silently, weaving between the flower beds, occasionally brushing against her legs or batting gently at a stray leaf. Lila laughed softly, the sound barely more than a sigh, and continued her work. She dug small holes to plant new seeds, sprinkled fresh soil over roots, and watered each row with gentle, measured pours from a clay watering can. The rhythm of her movements mirrored the natural pulse of the garden, the rustle of leaves, the soft trickle of water, and the distant murmur of the sea blending into a quiet lullaby that carried her forward. Hours seemed to stretch languidly. Sunlight shifted across the garden, highlighting different corners, revealing hidden details. a cluster of bluebells tucked beneath a fern, a tiny snail making its slow journey across a leaf, the soft glimmer of dew reflecting the morning light. Lila paused frequently, simply observing, taking in the subtle miracles around her. She began to notice the smallest changes, the way a flower seemed to lift slightly when she approached, or how the cat's eyes would follow the swaying branches of a tree. In these quiet moments, she felt a profound connection, as though the garden were responding to her presence with a gentle, unspoken gratitude. By midday, Lila had planted several new rows of flowers, soft daisies, lavender, and tiny violet blooms that shimmered faintly under the sunlight. She paused under a large oak tree to rest, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin and listening to the gentle chorus of the garden. Birds flitted among the branches, their songs weaving through the rustling leaves, and the waves beyond the garden rolled rhythmically onto the shore, a slow, comforting heartbeat. Every sound and scent was a reminder that she was part of this place now, and that this garden was slowly becoming a part of her. The work was not without its challenges. Some plants were stubborn, resisting her attempts to straighten them or settle them into the soil. Patches of weeds had crept quietly into hidden corners, and she spent long, meditative minutes gently removing them, careful not to disturb the flowers she loved. Each task required patience. Each small success brought quiet joy, and Lila found herself learning the rhythm of care, the slow, deliberate attention that allowed life to flourish. She understood in a deep and satisfying way that tending a garden was not merely about planting or watering, but about presence, mindfulness, and love. As the day moved toward evening, Lila began to notice subtle changes in the garden. The flowers seemed more upright, their colors deeper, more vivid, as if acknowledging her efforts. The wind carried the blended fragrances of earth, salt, and blossom, filling her senses with a gentle, calming intoxication. Even the cat appeared to sense the garden's renewed energy, stretching luxuriously in the sunlight and purring softly as it settled beside her. Every step, every movement, every breath seemed to harmonize with the natural cadence of this quiet sanctuary. By late afternoon, Lila paused to rest beside a small fountain tucked beneath a flowering arbor. The water trickled softly, creating tiny ripples that caught the sunlight and sparkled like scattered gems. She leaned back against the bench, closing her eyes, and let the sounds and scents wash over her. Her heartbeat slowed, matching the tranquil rhythm of the garden. In this moment, the world outside no longer existed. There was only the gentle sway of leaves, the quiet pulse of life, and the deep, enduring peace that comes from caring for something beyond oneself. As evening approached, the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the paths. Lila took a slow walk through the garden, observing each corner, each bloom, each whispering leaf. The cat followed silently, pausing occasionally to sniff a flower or bat at a drifting petal. Lila realized that this garden was no longer just a collection of plants and paths. It was a living tapestry of her attention, her care, and her presence. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a quiet joy that arose from the slow, steady work of nurturing life, and from the subtle magic of a place that had welcomed her so completely. By the time twilight settled over the garden, Lila had finished her work for the day. She stood at the edge of the pond, watching the last rays of sunlight reflect across the still water. Everything shimmered softly, the flowers, the leaves, the cat's fur, even the tiny ripples in the fountain. She inhaled the delicate blend of scents one last time and whispered a quiet promise to the garden. To return, to care, and to listen. And as she walked back along the sandy paths toward the edge of the garden, she realized that tending this place had changed her in ways she could not yet fully name. Her steps were lighter, her mind quieter, and her heart attuned to the subtle rhythms of life. The garden had begun to teach her the gentle, enduring art of presence, the slow, deliberate attention that nurtures not only the earth, but the soul itself. And as the first stars began to appear in the evening sky, she knew that tomorrow she would return, ready to continue the quiet, magical work of tending a garden by the sea. The morning after her first day of tending the garden, Lila returned with a quiet sense of anticipation. The garden seemed to hum gently with life, each flower standing a little taller, each leaf catching the sunlight in a subtle, joyful shimmer. She wandered along the winding paths, her bare feet brushing against the soft sand and dew-laden moss, listening to the familiar whispers of leaves and the distant murmur of the sea. As she walked past the old oak tree, Lila noticed something she hadn't seen before: a small wooden box, partially hidden beneath a tangle of ivy and climbing roses. Its surface was worn smooth by time, the edges softened and rounded, as if it had been waiting patiently for someone to discover it. Curiosity stirred in her chest, and she knelt slowly, brushing away the leaves and dust to reveal a simple latch. The box opened with a gentle creak, revealing a bundle of papers tied together with a faded ribbon. Lila untied the ribbon carefully, lifting each sheet with reverent fingers. They were pages from a journal, yellowed with age, the handwriting elegant and flowing. The words spoke of another girl who had once cared for this very garden, long before Lila's arrival. She read about the flowers that had been planted in memory of a beloved family member, the gentle guidance of the sea that had shaped the paths, and the quiet magic of tending life with love and attention. Each line seemed to carry a gentle pulse, as if the garden itself had lent its heartbeat to the words. A warm, delicate feeling rose in Lila's chest. She realized that she was not alone in this space. She was walking the same paths, tending the same flowers, sharing the same quiet moments as someone who had lived here many years ago. The garden was more than a place of plants. It was a repository of care, memory, and quiet devotion, a living bridge between the past and the present. As she explored the journal further, Lila found sketches of the garden in different seasons: spring blossoms that glimmered like jewels, summer sunlight filtering through the trees, autumn leaves drifting slowly to the ground, and winter's soft frost coating the flowers in delicate crystals. She traced her fingers over the lines of ink, imagining the girl who had drawn them, the hands that had tended the soil, the laughter and whispered secrets that had once filled this hidden sanctuary. Lila noticed that some of the journal pages contained small pressed flowers. Their colors faded, but their shapes still delicate and perfect. She lifted them gently, inhaling the faint, lingering scent of blooms long past. Each one seemed to whisper a story of care, patience, and the quiet magic that exists when someone tends to life with love. It was as if the garden itself had preserved these memories, waiting for someone to arrive who would understand their significance. She spent hours beneath the oak tree, reading slowly, savoring each detail. The garden seemed to breathe along with her, the leaves quivering slightly as if responding to her attention, the flowers leaning toward her, the cat curling up nearby as if guarding the delicate secrets she had uncovered. Time moved differently here, gentle, unhurried, each moment stretching into the next with the soft rhythm of a lullaby. Lila realized that her care for the garden was more than tending flowers. It was continuing a story, adding her own presence to a long line of devotion. The garden had held these secrets patiently, awaiting someone who could listen with the heart as much as with the eyes. And in that realization, she felt a deep sense of peace, a quiet joy that arose from the connection across time, from the shared act of nurturing life, and from the understanding that love leaves its mark in subtle, enduring ways. As the sun began to dip low, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, Lila carefully returned the journal to its box, tucking it safely beneath the ivy. She stood, stretching her arms toward the warm light, and looked around the garden with a renewed sense of purpose. Every flower, every leaf, every ripple of the pond seemed to welcome her presence, to affirm the invisible thread that tied her to the girl who had come before. She wandered along the paths one last time, before the evening shadows deepened, touching petals and inhaling the soft scents of the flowers. The cat followed silently, and together they moved through the quiet sanctuary, absorbing the gentle magic that lingered in the air. Lila understood that this garden was a living memory, a repository of hope and care, and that she was now a part of its story, a story that would continue quietly, beautifully, and endlessly with her presence. And as twilight settled over the garden, the first stars appearing in the sky above, Lila sat beneath the oak tree, feeling the steady, rhythmic pulse of the garden in every leaf, every bloom, and every whisper of the wind. She closed her eyes, letting the gentle magic of the place sink into her heart, and allowed herself to drift into a quiet, dreamlike calm. The garden had shared its secret, and in return, it had given her something even more precious: the enduring serenity of being wholly present, wholly connected, and wholly alive in this enchanted corner by the sea. Days passed softly in the garden, each one flowing into the next, like the slow, rhythmic waves that kissed the shore. Lila continued her careful tending, her hands gentle yet deliberate, her eyes attentive to the subtlest movements of leaves and flowers. The garden seemed to respond to her presence. Blossoms stretching toward the sun, petals glistening with morning dew, and the cat weaving silently among the paths as a quiet companion. Yet, even in this serene place, the natural world has its own rhythm, sometimes bringing challenges that must be met with patience. One afternoon, as Lila bent over a row of violets, the wind began to shift. A gentle breeze became a stronger gust, tugging at the branches of trees and sending loose petals spiraling into the air. The sea beyond the garden swelled slightly, a soft rumble echoing through the shore, reminding her that nature's course is both beautiful and unpredictable. Lila took a deep breath and adjusted her watering can, gently holding the taller flowers in place as the wind passed. She worked slowly, deliberately, making sure that every plant she touched would be supported through the passing gusts. Though the breeze tested her patience, she felt no frustration. Instead, she found a quiet satisfaction in the rhythm of tending, each careful movement a conversation with the garden, each adjustment a small act of love. Later that day, a sudden downpour arrived, soft at first, then heavier, pattering against leaves, petals, and the sandy paths. Lila paused beneath the shelter of the old oak tree, listening to the water's gentle song as it drummed on the branches above. She watched the drops gather in tiny pools on the flower petals, reflecting the muted light of the overcast sky. Rather than rushing, she allowed herself to move with the storm, helping delicate blooms bend safely under the weight of rain and making sure the soil around fragile roots remained steady. Even the weeds, which had crept quietly into hidden corners, required her careful attention. She removed them gently, mindful not to disturb the flowers nearby. Each weed she lifted, each stray root she smoothed into the earth, became a small lesson in patience. She realized that challenges, no matter how gentle, were part of the natural cycle, opportunities to practice care, to observe closely, and to deepen her connection with the living world around her. By evening, the storm had passed, leaving behind a refreshed garden. Glistening with moisture, the sun peeked through soft clouds, casting a muted golden light across the paths. Lila walked slowly among the blooms, noting how they had endured, how they had bent and swayed, yet remained upright. The cat padded beside her, shaking droplets from its fur, and together they wandered through the quiet sanctuary. Every leaf sparkled with renewed life, every flower seemed to sigh in relief, and even the gentle ripple of the pond reflected a serene sense of accomplishment. Lila paused by the fountain, kneeling to touch the smooth surface of the water and feeling the cool, refreshing sensation spread through her fingers. She thought of the journal she had discovered, of the girl who had tended this garden long ago, and she understood that challenges had always been part of this place. They were not obstacles, but gentle reminders of the delicate balance that life requires, the patience, care, and mindfulness needed to nurture and sustain it. As twilight settled over the garden, the first stars appearing above the sea, Lila felt a quiet sense of pride. She had met the challenges of the day not with haste, but with calm attention. Every flower she had straightened, every petal she had protected, every weed she had removed had been a slow, deliberate act of love. And in return, the garden offered her a subtle, enduring magic, the serenity of accomplishment, the beauty of resilience, and the gentle knowledge that care transforms even the simplest acts into lasting wonder. Lila stood for a long moment, inhaling the fragrance of the flowers after the rain, listening to the soft lap of waves, and feeling the pulse of the garden beneath her hands. She realized that challenges, though small and quiet, had deep meaning. They were part of the story of the garden, part of the story she now shared, and part of the slow, enduring magic that would continue to guide her day after day in this peaceful sanctuary by the sea. And as she finally rested on a bench beneath the flowering arbor, the cat curling beside her, Lila allowed herself to exhale fully. The garden had tested her gently, and in return, it had given her a lesson in patience, care, and quiet strength. The world outside could wait. Here, she was safe, calm, and wholly present, embraced by the soft, enduring rhythm of life in this secret garden by the sea. As evening settled over the garden, a soft golden light lingered on the petals and leaves, casting long, gentle shadows across the winding paths. Lila wandered slowly, feeling the warmth of the fading sun on her skin and the comforting rhythm of the sea in the distance. The garden had endured, it had grown, and it had welcomed her presence with an enduring quiet grace. Each flower, each leaf, each ripple in the pond seemed to whisper a gentle message. All is well. All is calm. She paused beside the fountain tucked beneath the flowering arbor, where water trickled in a soothing, steady rhythm. Kneeling to touch the cool, reflective surface, she watched the sunlight dance across the ripples, creating tiny, shimmering patterns that seemed almost magical. The cat, now comfortably curled at her side, purred softly, a warm vibration that harmonized with the subtle sounds of the garden. For the first time since discovering this hidden sanctuary, Lila felt completely at peace, as if the garden itself had wrapped her in an embrace. Sitting back on the wooden bench, she allowed herself to breathe slowly, deliberately. Each inhale drew in the sense of salt, earth, and blossoms, and each exhale released the tension and worries that had clung to her before she arrived. The garden had not only thrived under her care, but it had also tended to her, offering healing in the form of quiet moments, gentle beauty, and an enduring sense of belonging. She thought of the journal she had found, the girl who had cared for this garden long ago, and the lessons she had discovered in its pages. The garden was more than flowers and trees. It was memory, it was love, it was continuity. Lila realized that she was now a part of this living story, her presence and care weaving into the tapestry of time that the garden had patiently nurtured. She felt the weight of solitude lift from her shoulders, replaced by a deep, quiet joy. As twilight deepened, the first stars began to appear in the sky, reflected softly in the still waters of the pond. The sea beyond shimmered with the fading light, its waves rolling gently, a lullaby that echoed the heartbeat of the garden. Lila closed her eyes, letting the subtle sounds and scents wrap around her like a soft blanket. Every leaf, every petal, every ripple seemed to pulse in harmony with her own breath, and a profound serenity filled her heart. She allowed herself to linger in this moment, feeling the gentle healing that comes from being present, from giving care and receiving it in return. The garden had taught her patience, attentiveness, and the quiet power of love expressed in small, deliberate actions. She felt lighter, calmer, and deeply connected to the natural world around her, as though the rhythm of the sea, the sway of the flowers, and the whispering wind had settled into her very being. As night fell, Lila rose slowly, stretching and walking along the sandy paths one last time before she returned to the small cottage nearby. The garden remained alive behind her, glowing softly in the moonlight, a sanctuary of peace and memory. She paused at the edge of the garden, looking back at the flowers and the fountain, and whispered a quiet promise. She would return, she would continue to care, and she would remain part of this gentle story. With the cat at her heels and the sea murmuring softly in the background, Lila stepped out of the garden and onto the beach. The stars above mirrored in the waves at her feet. She felt a warm, encompassing sense of completion, a day well spent, a heart well nourished, and a soul touched by the quiet magic of a place that had welcomed her entirely. And as she walked toward home, she carried with her the enduring serenity of the garden, a treasure of calm and healing that would lull her into restful, dream-filled sleep. In this secret garden by the sea, peace had been found, care had been given, and a quiet healing had taken root. The world outside could wait. Here, in the gentle embrace of flowers, wind, and waves, Lila, and anyone who entered this place could rest, dream, and simply be. As the night deepened, the garden rested beneath a soft blanket of moonlight. Each flower seemed to hold a tiny, quiet glow, every leaf whispered a gentle sigh, and the waves lapped slowly against the shore, keeping a steady, comforting rhythm. Lila sat on the bench one last time, feeling the pulse of the garden beneath her fingertips, and letting the serenity of the place settle into her heart. She thought of all the care she had given, the quiet moments of wonder and the connection across time with those who had tended this garden before her. She understood that life, like this garden, thrives in patience, in gentle attention, and in love given freely. Even the smallest acts can create lasting beauty, and every breath taken in mindful presence becomes a part of the story. With the cat curled beside her and the soft murmur of the sea in the background, Lila closed her eyes, letting herself drift into calm, dream-filled sleep. The garden would remain timeless and patient, a sanctuary of peace for anyone who arrived with an open heart. Here, beneath the stars, all was still, all was safe, and all was exactly as it should be.